Sorry, that's just the Zoom recording. I'm already recording the audio.
Okay.
All right. Well, Mr. Brooks Agnew, a returning guest, we are so pleased to have you back. And it hasn't been that long, but boy, your words were really prophetic because for people, maybe for people that haven't listened to that episode briefly, you are known for many things, but primarily, in my opinion, for your hollow earth, inner earth theory. And for anybody who hasn't listened to it, please go listen to the first episode with Brooks. He went into detail about his findings on the inner Earth ocean. And since then, there's been a number of publications that have come out proving you correct. We already believed you, but this is just something that, as I said before we started recording,
It's hard to
everybody
catch
should
up
know
with
this.
Agnew, isn't it?
Well, does this mean anything to you? I mean, you already knew this. You already knew that this was true, but do you kind of get a feeling of like, I told you so, or is it way past that with you?
Oh yeah, it's past that for me. I mean, I like when other communities, geological communities, or even the astronomical community, when they finally catch up with me, it just puts sand in the balance for me. When we're talking about a hypothesis like hollow Earth theory or hollow Earth uh, design, it really flies in the face of classic planetary core geology. We think we live on a molten ball floating through space, and we live on these tectonic plates that float around like cornflakes in a bowl of milk between the oceans, and we're happy with that. That's in our geology textbooks. That's what geology majors and professors learn and teach right now. But it's there's a lot of evidence that says that is not exactly accurate. So we're running experiments, not just me, but my friends at JPL and also at Carnegie Science and uh, Japan is doing some spectrographical measurements of the core of the Earth itself. And they don't talk to each other. They don't send each other emails. They don't know each other's names, but I do. So I'm kind of linking all them together and saying, by the way, your frequency measurements match up with the diamond anvil experiments at Carnegie Science. Did you know that? And they go, no, we didn't know that. So bringing all this together seems to add more credulity to the theory that planets might form as hollow spheres.
It's just so amazing to me that something like this isn't just mainstream knowledge. I was reading one of the articles,
Well, it's not
and
it's not mainstream now, Mike. We're talking about fringe, fringe science of fringe science. So we're trying to make it mainstream because I mean, let's admit we're the mainstream now, right? It's not
right.
CNN anymore. It's you and me. We're the mainstream. We're reaching more people with more truth without some central think tank brain somewhere telling us what to say every day than they are. And we're changing the world.
That
No
is a good
doubt.
point. That's it's a pretty good way to look at it too. And I definitely would have never considered myself or Mike here part of mainstream. But no, you're 100% right. People are more into finding their info independently nowadays and not trusting the big sources. And what the route you were kind of going with it, Mike, that everybody, it should be common knowledge for sure. Like it should be something people are excited about, like, oh, this massive new discovery, even if it was mainstream science or like something that was broadcasted to, you know, more public or general audience. I still don't think people would care as much nowadays. Like something to do with science or figuring out what we live on, where we live is just not really on people's priority. They'd
Oh,
rather
that's
be
true.
distracted.
I mean, there are a lot of blue pill people out there. I know the steak isn't real, but I like it.
100%.
I wanted to ask you a question. In one of the articles that I read that proved you correct, it mentioned that this inner Earth ocean, was potentially surrounded or sealed off by this mineral called ringwoodite.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, ringwoodite is a kind of fossil. It can only form in the presence of, uh, let's call it volcanic material. So when we find ringwoodite on the surface, or we bring it up, say, from a drill or from a mine that we're mining, it is it is not common. This is something that would be like 900 miles inside the planet. So to find it, because the deepest hole we've ever drilled is what, 8 miles, and it's in Russia. Very, very common to get down 6 or 7 thousand feet with a mine or an oil well or a gas well. That's very common, even to 18,000 feet. But to get ringwoodite in those drill cuttings, that's very rare. That shows an upheaval or a turnover from the inner earth toward the surface, which is us. And that's so the fact that we're beginning to pick this up in cuttings is more sand in the balance. It's more telling that Earth is actually a hollow sphere and not a solid ball.
Now, the ringwoodite coupled with your our previous conversation, you had mentioned how stingrays were such a vital, pivotal, played a pivotal role in information in this whole excursion because they're their ecosystem is very sensitive, and you were able to kind of determine a lot of things from that. Could you kind of just run that over again? I found that so interesting.
Yeah, we were planning on an Arctic expedition when I took over the expedition team in 2007. So we didn't realize how expensive it was going to be or how difficult it was going to be. So we just pushed ahead. And so in 2008, we started raising money through investors to try to charter the ship. As it turns out, it's going to be about $3.5 million. So that's very difficult to get investors of that caliber together. But what happened in 2009 was Scripps. Scripps is a lab, and they take various environmental samples around the planet to supply to different kinds of groups doing different studies, most of which has to do with environmental effects on nature, especially man's involvement in those environmental effects. Lots and lots of funding behind that stuff. So in 2009, it happened to be the, I think, 5-year anniversary. They went down to Malaysia and sampled rays like stingrays and manta rays because rays, as it turns out, are very sensitive to changes in ocean chemistry, salinity, acidity, different kinds of chemicals like pesticides and oil and different things in the water. Normally, they see 150, maybe 200 mutations in the rays. And it's interesting, like tree frogs in the Amazon. If something weird goes on in the atmosphere and it rains some weird acid rain in the Amazon, tree frogs grow 6 legs, and they mutated into different kind of, not species, but different kinds of variations of tree frogs. So that's what rays are. So they expected to see something like that order, 150 to 200 mutations. What they found in 2009 were 1,500, and many of them were new species or species we haven't seen in a million years, like frilled sharks and dorsal squids and different stuff that not supposed to be alive in our waters. So that kind of pointed back to this 2008 Arctic warming anomaly that we saw, where the wind kind of blew very steady from the west for a long period of time, which creates a lot of stress on the ice. The ocean itself was kind of warm. And so what had happened is it created weakness in the ice shelf itself, and a big piece calved off. We call it calving in Arctic science. And this piece was enormous, like the size of the state of Rhode Island. And what it did is it opened the Northwest Passage to navigation for the first time in, I don't know, maybe 5,000 years. It's no record of it ever being sailed, but it was wide open. So we suspected that there might be an Arctic vent in the floor, which is 4,400 meters deep. Very difficult to get to. No one has ever sailed it. No one's ever seen it from the surface, ever. So we're planning on chartering this Russian nuclear powered icebreaker from Murmansk Shipping Company in Murmansk, Russia. and take that icebreaker to this location again and see if we can sample the bottom and see if we can get some real world data that there might be a vent between the two oceans right there, that's maybe where this sea life came from. And then it got into the Gulf Stream and made its way to Malaysia.
So what would it be that you guys are like looking for to confirm the theory that that's where these things came from? What would be like the
Very good question.
gotcha moment?
And when our team gets together and we start, and of course I'm a technology designer, I design tools and solutions for the Fortune 100. So the challenge is, how do we get to the bottom and get a core sample off the bottom? Well, there are two ways. One is with a submersible, and there is a company that makes a submersible, but it's only capable of going to 1,500 meters. That's as long as the cable is. To modify it to go to 4,400 meters will cost $5 million. I said, that's probably a little out of our budget. Even if we were able to get a grant, we're never going to get enough to make that submersible. So we decided to design what I call the Dart. The Dart weighs a couple 100 pounds, and you throw it over the side, and it's a dart. It goes straight down to the bottom. When it gets to the bottom, it penetrates a pipe into the silt on the bottom and takes a sample. A bag then inflates with nitrogen, and it floats itself back to the surface. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes for it to get to the bottom, and it takes about 2.5 hours for it to make it to the surface. So obviously we have to make more than one dart if we're going to take multiple samples and make any kind of time at all. We got to get this done in 15 days. So we're dropping darts. They're coming back to the surface. They got a flashing light on. We recover them with a helicopter, bring them back to the ship, take the sample out, recollapse the bag, recharge the nitrogen bottle, and drop it again. That's how we're going to collect the first ever samples from the bottom of the Arctic Ocean in this location. The supposition is, the hypothesis is, that if there is a vent, the residue on the bottom of the ocean is going to be very much different than it is anywhere else on the planet. We're going to see different diatoms, different kinds of fossils. The water is going to have a different salinity, a different crystallinity, a different water chemistry, because it's exposed to different radiation than our surface ocean is. If we can collect this data, by the way, we're bringing 6 different universities with us and their science staffs to collect this information. And if the information backs the hypothesis, we've busted this whole thing wide open for the first time in human history.
I am so glad that you're a part of this community, Brooks, because you are so well spoken, you're so smart, and you're just a gem to have in this community, man. Yeah, we're lucky to have you, brother.
I appreciate that very much. If I could sit down with investors, I could show them the business plan and the fact that we have 2 continents, 40 million fans waiting to see this live stream from the ship. Wow. And they will pay to watch that live stream. It's a great business model, but we got to have the investors step up.
Yeah,
it's the only way it's going to happen.
No doubt. Man, I feel like we can devote just episode after episode just on this subject, but just to kind of move things along, I know at the end, it was just real briefly too, at the end of our first conversation, the Nephilim got brought up. And I know Tom is a huge Nephilim guy, and I figured maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I have 12 books in print. And the first 4 books were called The Arc of Millions of Years. I had a co-author who has since passed away, but that's 2,000 pages of nonfiction work that is done examining 44 ancient cultures and their history and their feelings and their science and their architecture about humans' relationship with the planet itself, Earth. And almost to a population, they believed that Earth was a sentient being, that it had a spirit, it had a consciousness of its own. And that when humans were good as a population, Earth released its bounty to them. And when humans were mean or murderous or evil, Earth had an allergic reaction, and there would be an ice age or a tsunami or a hurricane or something, and it would spank the race back down, and they have to start over again. But the realization is that in the last 400 years, man has grown too fast. We learned to sail, we learned to fly, we discovered oil and nuclear power, and we're visiting other planets, and Earth just can't keep up with us. So now there are 8 billion of us on the planet, which is a very, very powerful consciousness signal. And it is having a symbiotic relationship with Earth spirit itself, except the Earth can't decide whether to destroy us or whether to release its bounty to us, because about half of us are wicked and half of us are good. And in this study, by the way, I wrote the Birth Trilogy about this, and it is a bestseller. And we're trying to get it into TV right now, so we're negotiating with Amazon for that. But the bottom line is this: as we examined history, we realized that except for the last 400 years, the population of mankind's not really been that dense on the earth. There's plenty of buffalo, plenty of fish, plenty of land, and yet, even when we go back to the Native Americans, we've been fighting each other. We've been riding hundreds of miles across the frozen tundra to destroy each other, to wipe each other out. And that question came up, why? Why are we doing that? And when we got into these 44 ancient cultures, what we realized is their gods were telling them to do it. They were telling them, you got to go wipe this population out and take their land. You got to go destroy the Lakotas or the Blackfoot or the Cherokee or the Arapaho. You got to destroy them. And they did it. They just followed what their gods were telling them. So we said, okay, who are the gods? Who's doing this? Obviously, they're advanced beings that live here on this planet. Maybe they fly around on UFOs, I don't know. But they're visiting these people and teaching them. We watched a documentary on a temple that was built in Mexico. And to commemorate the finishing of this temple, 84,000 people were sacrificed in 3 days. Unbelievable. I mean, that's a person every 6 seconds, 24 hours a day for 3 days. It's crazy. And why? Why did they do that? Why did they build this building and then commemorate it with so much death? It's because there are advanced beings on this planet. I maintain they're the Nephilim that are teaching man, giving them this technology, making promises to them, supernatural promises, in exchange for death, in exchange for us fighting each other. It's why the world is where it is right now.
100%. And if you were to speculate, then why they want all this bloodshed? Why do they want humans killing each other? Why do they benefit from that? Do you think there is some sort of like energetic exchange, like they get almost like sustenance from stuff like that, from rituals, from murder, from blood?
Yes. One of the things that we discovered is a principle called glory. Now, glory is a word to us. We get it when we win a football game. We get it when we win a war. But glory is actually an individual energy signature that each one of us have as a spirit being. We are a spirit being. We're an eternal being having a mortal experience. So our physical bodies deceive us because they're so limited. We can only see so much, hear so much. We can't fly. We can't run very fast. We live 85% of our time in shelter because we can't, stand the elements. We're basically a weak body, but we are a very powerful spirit. And I believe that these Nephilim work for a very dark and nefarious power in the universe. Let's call it the devil just to make it easy. And that devil wants our glory, can't take it from us. They've tried that lots of times. Killing innocent people does not work. What they want is for us to choose to give them our glory. And the only way we do that is if we become like them. And so when I look at and I'm going to use the word elite because that's what they call themselves. They are not elite. They are child eaters. These are people that consume the most innocent human flesh. Why? Because it is the most offensive thing to God that they can do. They choose to do it. They choose to do it. And in exchange, their God, or these Nephilim, bless them with great power, great wealth, total immunity to the law. They can stride anywhere they want, do anything they want, kill anybody they want, and the law cannot touch them. That's the gift that the Nephilim gives them.
Yeah, you are 100% right. And I'm with you. I don't like calling them the elite either. The only thing they're elite at is being psychopathic scumbags and completely evil. And it's basically like what they do does work because, like you said, it's like they've got to these positions because they've had help.
Yeah.
They
And
have
what can we
immunity.
do? I mean, as soon as we pick up a weapon and get angry and start charging across the frozen tundra at them, they win. So, how do we beat them with love? How do we beat them and maintain our glory? Keep our glory bright and clean and pure? This is a question. It's a big question. It's a big challenge. And we're facing it right now.
Yeah, we really are. What do you gentlemen think is the way to beat them?
Well,
Uh,
we outnumber them a lot, by a lot. Uh, the threat to them is when we get together and organize. When we get together and think as one, or we care for one another and we move as one, well, we've already seen what they do. They use their armies and they shut down the entire world. They made us stay 6 feet away from each other. They destroyed our economy. We had a wonderful economy in 2020. Everybody was looking forward to the next decade. All my friends were making money. I was making money. Everyone was happy. We had world peace in the palm of our hands for the first time in, I don't know, when do we ever had an 18-month period where no American soldier died in conflict ever since 1776? Not happened except those 18 months. And this force on earth has an enemy. This military eternal war machine has an enemy, a mortal enemy. It's called peace. And so it destroyed it. And it transferred $4 trillion of our wealth from us to them. And they created 500 new billionaires just in this country in 18 months. And they're on the verge of wiping us out. They're on the verge of wiping us out. So what can we do to fix it? We can overcome their system by loving each other so much that we come out and use the system of laws that we have to overcome it. Now, I'm going to say that might be voting, but my God, look what they've done to our our election infrastructure. I don't even know if that will work unless we come out in mass, like 150 million Americans come out at one time and say no. It's the only way it's going to happen. And that means programs like yours and mine and others, we have to reach people and we have to make sure that they don't lay down and let this happen.
Yeah.
this battle between the Nephilim and us have been, as you suspect, has been going on for a long time. Do you believe that it has ever reached a crescendo in the past that maybe we can look back on and kind of see how they pulled themselves out of it and kind of lean on that?
Well, in medieval times, the giants came out and helped men win wars. And if you look back into the technology of warfare, you don't have to go very far. You get to the Romans. Now, the Romans created a weapon called a ballista.
Mhm.
And if you look at a ballista, it is basically a four-wheeled uh, uh, bow and arrow, but it shoots a bolt, an iron bolt with a sharpened tip, and it shoots it so fast. Now, the historians that I spoke to about this weapon, they said, "Oh, that was used, to knock castle walls down, and that way they could siege and take over." And I said, "That's nonsense. I would make a weapon completely different than if I'm knocking stone down. This was designed to pierce armor. It was designed to pierce armor. And if you look at this bolt, it's about 65 pounds. The average person that they were fighting in those days, weighed 145 pounds, was 5'5". Even if they were wearing armor, they weren't very formidable because they weren't very mobile unless they were on a horse. No, this bolt was made to pierce the armor of a giant. It was made to fight a beast that was so strong, so powerful, and so fast that Roman soldiers, as well trained as they were useless against it. It could swing a sword or a hammer or something like that and just wipe Romans out of the way. So they created this weapon to pierce the chest armor of these giants and kill them. That's what has to happen. We have to develop a weapon system that can stop these. Now, fortunately, there aren't very many of these. We don't have giants roaming the land like we did because the Nephilim are not breeding with us like they were. But it doesn't mean they're not at the head of the armies. You know how many four-star generals we had during World War II?
Don't.
Hmm. Just three.
7. We
Oh,
had
wow.
7. You know how many four-star generals we have now?
Mm-mm.
43.
Jesus.
43 four-star generals. And these are like aircraft carriers. They have whole support groups that come with them. We moved a lot of them out of the Pentagon down here to Fort Bragg, which is in Fayetteville, North Carolina. $283 million it took to upgrade that base to accommodate those generals that moved out of the Pentagon. This is the shit. This is what they're doing. They're taking over our country, these 43 four-star generals. Something has to be done. You got to take these giants out. You have to remove them, or we're all going to die.
That's super interesting. You're the first one to ever bring up the ballista as a weapon for that, but that does make sense, right? They had catapults and plenty of other things used to more effectively break down walls.
Heck
Doesn't
yeah.
seem like it doesn't seem like that would have been
Had the
ideal for that.
trebuchet. I mean, they could launch big
Yeah,
flaming,
exactly.
piles of hay over the wall and burn roofs on the inside. They could throw big rocks. Why did they need the ballista? The ballista was a close action weapon used to pierce the chest armor of giants.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it adds up. It checks out. There was definitely no shortage of giant stories, like you said. Pretty much any culture and old warfare would have talked about this or credited like the megaliths or the monuments and stuff around to being built by giants or civilizations founded by the giants. So yeah, that's super interesting. And I know that the military, the U.S. military, talked about the Kandahar giant in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan. So
Mm-hmm.
there definitely is rumored to be at least a few still out there.
Yeah, where you got an 18-footer that can move like lightning with a sword. It can take out men with guns. The Kandahar giant was this was a live giant that they faced in a cave, and it was large and red-haired. So the story goes. We never saw the body, but there's a body count from it.
And we also never seen the body. There's story after story of giants being found in the States,
Oh yeah,
and then what's it called coming through? I can't, it's escaping me.
Smithsonian.
Yeah, the Smithsonian coming through and nothing was found. What's
Well,
up? You know?
nothing was shown to the public, and now we have, and this is because we're seeing lawsuits, and these are insurance lawsuits that families are waging against the Department of Defense because not a small number of soldiers have sustained brain injuries brain injuries from their encounters with UFOs. This is now coming to the surface. So the Department of Defense is saying, oh, these are ours, and, they're not aliens and they're not transdimensional beings and blah, blah, blah. But these lawsuits tell a different story.
Interesting. And to backtrack a little about the 43 generals and the giants. So you're thinking that they're doing some like black budget project to do with giants? Like, is it for giants or fighting against giants or?
No, I think they're taking orders from the Nephilim.
Oh, yeah.
I think world leaders,
I
Russians,
agree.
Vatican, our own executives, not Trump, but Obama, others, Kerry, they're going to meet with the Nephilim where they are. And I think they're in two places. I maintain that one is um in Colorado, in the fortress that's in the Colorado Mountains in Colorado Springs. And I maintain that one is in Antarctica, and that's why they're traveling there to meet. They're receiving orders directly. They're having their testimony made firm. Let's put it that way. Yes, he's real. Yes, he's here. Yes, he's lived for 100,000 years. He knows everything that's happening. And if you want to be made rich, and your kids and your grandkids, we need to defeat these forces. And that's
I'm
what
sure.
we're fighting. We're fighting a supernatural intelligence that, might even be greater than mine.
I think that both you guys are probably familiar with the rumor or the speculation. People say that that's was in Hillary's emails, that she was saying something about Gilgamesh's tomb or something. The deleted Hillary Clinton emails, like, oh, they found Gilgamesh's tomb, or something about we gotta get the artifacts. We gotta see what's up with that. So I think that the global elites' interest in anything to do with giants and stuff like that. Like, people think that the reason we went to the Iraq war was because Saddam was, you know, becoming on some trippy thoughts, that he thought he was, the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, or he was finding some ancient artifact.
Stargate. There's a
Yeah,
Stargate, right?
that's what some people thought, that there was a Stargate or some sort of ancient technology or a giant's body or something that was in Iraq. And that was one of the main reasons that we wanted to go there. And we sacked their museum, was one of the first things that we did, stole a bunch of
Yes.
ancient artifacts, but left behind the replicas. So it was like a very, like, you know, well-informed mission, that they didn't just loot it. They knew exactly what they were going there for.
Somebody did.
Right.
Somebody did. Somebody said, yeah, we need to get our access to this technology. It's ancient and we need it. And that's not the first time this has been done. Hitler did it and
Yep.
accumulated a lot of, weird technology. And we know, because I'm in the business, I have a degree in nuclear chemistry and I did my postgrad at Oak Ridge. We know that there was a nuclear signature in Nazi Germany way before Trinity. It was small, but we did pick it up. It did knock the lights out in London for 6 hours. So we know that it was there. We also know that the two triggers, the technology was actually stolen from the Nazis. Somebody gave it to them. Somebody trained them to build these weapons. And that's why we had to move so quickly. And we stole that technology and then we used it ourselves.
Right. A lot of people they tend to think whatever type of route the conspiracy tends to, lead back to Nazis in all types of different ways, whether it's UFOs or the Antarctica, the hollow earth, this type of stuff. But like, some people ignore how deeply into the occult they were. Like, they were just as
Oh,
psychotic as everyone else, if
oh,
not
and
more.
before them, it was the Vatican.
Yeah,
I mean, the
exactly.
Vatican was all powerful, sent their armies in to kill everybody and take the technology. And sometimes the technology was in form of manuscripts. They just killed everybody and they took the manuscripts, and the world's never seen them. They've kept them secret to themselves.
Man, I wonder what's actually down there in those archives.
Oh my gosh.
Can't imagine.
Do you have an opinion on the Stargate that supposedly was there?
Um, No, not really. I think that subspace travel is possible. I think that it's impossible to jump into a can of any mortal making, any third dimensional making, and travel across the stars to another star system. That's just not possible unless you're willing to develop an asteroid into a ship and put a population on it and move it across space. And that's going to move very slowly. It's still going to take thousands of years to get from one star to another. Not practical. There has to be a subspace way of folding space and moving through these intense gravity lenses from one place to another.
Yeah,
And
And
it's not very easy because there's no alien invasion force folding space and coming here. If there are aliens here, they have to be very careful because if they poke their head out, we have something on this planet that protects us. And War of the Worlds kind of alluded to it, but we humans walk through a literal sea of viruses. Our genetics are a wrecking yard of human beings' encounters with viruses over hundreds of thousands of years. Any being that comes to this planet that's not genetically prepared for that onslaught is not going to survive.
hmm, that's interesting. I never really thought about it much past the War of the Worlds, like you said. But yeah, that's it's pretty astonishing. And you mentioned just a little bit ago about the Colorado Springs being home to a base. My wife and I, we had just drove. We live in Chicago, and we just drove to Las Vegas and back.
Ah,
And part of that trip is right through the mountains. And I remember thinking, you could hide 1,000 high schools, boom, right there, and you
you
and it
could.
would take forever to find it. It would take forever to you never find it. So a base that is hidden well, good
Well,
luck.
we know about Cheyenne Mountain. There's plenty of movies, plenty of pictures, but there's lots more, lots more. People don't even know what Side R is. Side R was built in the 40s with an intense national budget. It's 5 buildings. It's a city underground, underground on the Pennsylvania border. It's actually close to Camp David, 6.8 miles or something from Camp David. I mention it in the Birth trilogy and again in Charm of Favor and in my sequel, which I'm writing right now. It's going to come out this summer to Charm of Favor. We cover Side R in great detail. You learn all about it.
and as far as the giants possibly being in Colorado Springs, what draws you to that conclusion?
I don't think it's giants. I think it's actually a Nephilim. I think a Nephilim is in Cheyenne Mountain. It doesn't come out, it's sequestered, but it runs pretty much everything from there.
Interesting. Has there ever been some sort of sighting there, or evidence, or maybe some
Anybody
smoke
that's
for
ever
that?
seen the Nephilim is not going to talk
Not
about
around. Yeah, I wonder. Do you think the elites like meet face to face with these beings sometimes, or like these generals, like the
when they
higher
get
ups?
high enough. The first thing that you call them, the elites, I call them the child eaters. The first thing they have to do is they have to initiate.
Right,
They have to follow the path. And the deeper you go, the more you kill, the more heinous demonstration of lack of respect for human life you demonstrate, the more you qualify for.
right.
Nephilim doesn't meet with just anybody.
Of course. And I think a lot of people would subscribe to the idea like the highest levels of occult secret societies is, like summoning or seances or something, like getting in contact with dark forces or otherworldly beings. And it's not much more of a stretch than to imagine that they are meeting with some like very powerful, more physical type of being. It's almost even scarier in a way.
Well, I mean, it does take a lot of power because, if you go back and just read Genesis, which is kind of antiseptic, but by the time you get out of Genesis 6, you're introduced to 5 races of beings, none of whom are from Earth. None of whom are from Earth. That's pretty much proof that off-worlders have been big time involved in the development of the human race on this Earth. But it's the discussion between God and Lucifer that is the most interesting, because Lucifer does what he does with Eve, and there's all kinds of speculation as to what that could be. Maybe that's how Cain got here. But after all that's done, uh, God has a confrontation with Lucifer. He doesn't destroy him. Maybe he can't. Maybe he can't. He has a discussion with Lucifer. And Lucifer says, well, so you're going to curse me for what I've done. And that's fine. I'm perfectly willing to accept that curse. I'm on earth and you're not. So all the bodies that you create for Adam and Eve, which is us, my followers, the ones that didn't get a chance to be born here, we're going to take the bodies for our own. How about that? And God says something very interesting, kind of goes right by everybody. He says, no, I'm going to put enmity between you and the seed of the woman. And so they will have power to crush your head. You'll have power to bruise their heel. That enmity was evidently some special genetic protection that prevents demons from just taking over human bodies. And so Lucifer says, okay, I'll take the enmity that you've done, and I will, with armies, I will dominate this planet and I'll rule everything from here. And that's when God kicks Lucifer out of the garden. And then he gives special instructions to Adam and Eve as to how to proceed from here. So this enmity is what protects us. Lucifer can't just step in and take our body against our will. We have to give it to him. We have to step aside and let their demons step in and have their way. That's the power. That's the battle that we're seeing right now. What we're seeing happen in our universities, it's not spontaneous. It was planned months ago. All those flags, those T-shirts, those rags that these kids are wearing, they were all manufactured last year. This is all planned. Everything that you see unfolding right now is designed to sway us away from the 2024 election, because they know what we want. We want our country back, and they don't know what we're willing to do to get it back. But right now, we're within the confines of the law. We're within the confines of the Constitution, which is a very powerful document that was designed and built, I think, by divine influence, not for us. It was designed to limit government. Everything in that document is designed to limit government. Well, I got to ask you guys, Mike, and I don't know what your name is.
Tom.
Tom, Mike and Tom, is there any limit to what the government's doing right now? No, they're able to do whatever the hell they want right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to put the Constitution back in power, and we want to limit what government does. This is the war between now and November.
Oh, for sure. And I'm sure we're going to see some crazy things unfold.
We already are.
Yeah. We're not even halfway through the year yet, and we've got no shortage of things that we could ramble on about. I was going to say it's very clear, like what you said, that if we can't necessarily be, taken over by demons, if you will, we have to give ourselves to them.
Yep.
Look how many, vices or things and distractions and just things, lifestyles that are pushed on us to kind of open us up to that type of shit, and it's just constant, like a battle for our soul.
It's a little bit at a time, and before too long you're taking the big step.
Yeah,
you're taking the big step and you're taking someone's life. These terrorists are being trained right now in our universities. They didn't think this crap up yesterday. They've been taught it for years while they were there. I know how to fix it, but I would fix it with a simple brass plaque in the dining hall. And it would basically say, if you leave class or cause somebody else to leave class and you join a protest and you say death to anybody, Not only will you immediately be expelled, but your entire transcript will be erased. It will be as though you never were here.
That probably would
I'm
straighten them out.
I'm all for it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to do something because for you said it's been a plan, and I mean, I would say for at least the last decade, these universities have been running rampant. I mean, it's my daughter, she's graduating high school this year, and it terrifies me because I
Grade
want
school.
I want her to do what she wants to do. I don't want to be that person that, you know, but at the same time, I would be lying if I told you I wasn't worried about what school she chooses based on their ideology that they're trying to push on her.
Yeah, I got 6 grandchildren. I'm telling you, we're leaning heavily toward homeschooling.
I feel like that's one of the only other ways to fight this too, is to get out of the brainwash, get the kids out of it.
Yeah, get out of the river. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Because
You
the
have a SpaceX hat on.
I
So
do.
can I ask you, are you a flat earther? Do you believe the earth is flat? I am not a flat earther. But we explore everything here.
I will just say this: nothing in the universe is flat, not even time. Everything is revolving. Even our existence, even our light revolves in the universe.
even on a particle level, if you look at atoms and stuff, like that's what I tend to look back to, because I wouldn't say I'm a flat earther either, but I have a lot of mistrust of the people who have given us a lot of our knowledge about space. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were lying about it. But then, yeah, I come back to kind of what you just said. Like, you look at particles, everything's orbiting around each other, electrons and protons, and
I
they
grew
kind
up
of just look
in the
like it.
space community. My dad was a NASA engineer. I was one of those kids that was taken into the universities and studied. I didn't miss any math questions from the fourth grade to the eighth grade. So I was interviewed by the newspaper in the eighth grade, and they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I told them without hesitation, I want to be an asteroid miner. It blew them away. We hadn't been to the moon yet. So I've been in the space industry and a space enthusiast my entire life. Um, I dreamed for the day when private industry would step onto the moon for the first time and take it all away from governments. And it happened. That's why I'm wearing a SpaceX hat. Private industry took space away from governments. Their whole Artemis plan, their whole Gateway project, it isn't even in their hands anymore. The gold rush is on. We're putting so many rovers so fast. The last one was Intuitive Machines. Intuitive Machines, a little company with 18 employees. They built a rover, SpaceX launched it. It made its way to the moon, landed, and fell over. Lots of people trying to do it. The problem is that rovers remotely navigating to the moon and landing is very hard to do. It's hard to drive something 250,000 miles away by joystick. You just can't do it. You need a human touch. You need a pilot. It's coming. It's coming very soon. We're going to put humans back on the moon in Schrodinger's basin. We're not going to land in the pretty uh, you know craters that we see on the equatorial side of the moon. No one's interested in that. What we're interested in is the south pole of the moon. Why? Because of the LCROSS mission. The LCROSS mission, it was a government mission. It was designed to scan and analyze the atmosphere of the moon. It made a mistake. It ran out of fuel and its orbit began to decay. This was a sizable project. So they changed the mission. They blew the bolts that connected the spectrometer to the rocket, and they let the rocket fall to the moon on the South Pole. And it fell into a crater called Shackelford Crater. And when it landed, it created a huge plume, like, you know, throwing a rock really, really hard into the sand. It created a huge plume. Then they flew the spectrometer through the plume, analyzed it, sent the analysis back to Earth, and then the spectrometer crashed into the moon. That discovery of what was in that crater in 2006 started the rush that we're seeing today. But we had to get private industry to move government out of the way. And that's where we are right now.
Do we know what was found in that crater that
Oh,
created the
yeah.
rush?
That is an Everest size chunk of frozen helium-3. There's enough fuel in that crater to power Earth for 10,000 years. That's what the rush is on. That's what everybody's going for. That's why the Indians went there, the Chinese went there, the Russians crashed, Intuitive Machines just fell over and doesn't have any plutonium batteries to wake back up again after the lunar night. We are going for this crater. And the first one there is going to rule the world.
Man.
I have to ask you because you're probably going to be one of the best people I have the opportunity to talk to about it. So you obviously believe that we went to the moon in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. We were there. We also made some fake films in case we
Okay.
didn't make it,
Okay.
because failure was not an option. We were at war. We were in a Cold War with the Soviets, and we had to show them something. So we did make fake stuff, but we also landed there. And it was primitive technology, but it had very, very good pilots at the stick, and they were able to land on the moon. I interviewed 2 astronauts. I'm totally convinced we went. Plus, the Chinese photographed it, and the Indians photographed our two landing landers still on the moon. So they're still there.
I'm happy to hear that you at least admit that the videos are phony as can be, but
Oh, the
um
ones that were produced, yeah, they were done in a theater. But the real ones, the real stuff that was done on the moon, that was taken with the Hasselblads, that's real.
now do you okay, the Van Allen radiation belts, how did we get through that technology in the 60s?
As it turns out, during that 3-year period from 69 to 72, the Van Allen radiation belts were very quiet. The sun had been quiet for a while, so they were only going to be exposed for about a minute and a half. So they just covered themselves in a lead foil, went through it, and all 12 of them, well, all 16 of them, managed to live nice long lives. They didn't suffer any long term. Now we recently launched the Orion through it. I weigh 0.1 metric tons. Okay, so I'm a sizable guy. When I sat in Apollo down at the Stennis Space Center, I said, "There's no way, and there's no way I'm sitting in this for a week and going around the moon and coming back. It's not going to happen. It's too small for me. I would go crazy, and that's why astronauts were all these little bitty guys. Orion is bigger. You could actually maybe put Apollo inside Orion, and it's designed to seat 7 people. And I sat in one of those seats, and I said, I'm still not going. This is too small for me. Starship, I would do, but not Orion. Now, we recently launched Orion, had some good sensors in it. We sent it around the moon, brought it back, splashed it down, and I haven't seen the data. I haven't seen what the radiation levels were inside of that capsule. But I promise you, the people I know what that data is. And I think that Starship can make it. I think Starship can make it to the moon and back. And I told the team, here's the deal. You can launch it, you can get to near Earth orbit. You're going to make your mistakes, and Elon loves to make mistakes because he learns so much from them. He actually says, we don't learn anything from success. I mean, yeah, we make money, we raise money, everything's great. We do reusable rockets and all that, but we learn a lot more from failure. So they've learned a lot the last 2 launches of Starship. And I said, what we need to do is we need to go around the Earth a couple times, bring Starship back and land it. And you need to do it 5 times before you put a person in it. And then we need to do it a few dozen times around the Earth and back landing again, so we know men can fly that thing and land it. Because it's a little bit of a, I don't know if you've watched Starship land or not, but it's a little bit of nauseating journey, that flip, to come back and get right. It's not like coming straight down with parachutes. You're actually landing this craft under its own power on the ground. We need to do it a few times before you take people to the moon. And then I think we need to land a few times on the moon without people in it, which is not going to be easy to do before we try to do it manned. Once we do it manned the first time, it's game on. We're colonizing the moon. I wrote a book called Asteroid Mining: The Future of Energy. And in this book, we discuss in detail how to colonize the moon. It cannot be done on the surface. I argue with the team all the time. This looks glorious. I love your models of it, your AI generations of it, but it can't be done. We have to build out the volcanic vents. You've got to be under the surface of the moon in order to build a colony. And then we use your 3D printers, which Pennsylvania Penn State did some great work with the 3D printers. We use the 3D printers to seal up the opening. We build the airlock and seal it in with 100 feet thick of soil, regolith, because it's going to take 100 feet to hold back 10 pounds per square inch, which is basically Earth atmosphere at about 8,000 feet, which is about the best we're going to be able to pressurize the moon. But we get used to that pretty easy, 8,000 feet altitude. But you can bounce around on the inside of the moon with nothing but a short sleeve shirt. Once we get the helium fusion fuel system running on the moon.
That's incredible, and probably not too far in the future.
Oh, and if we colonize the moon, we're talking a couple hundred years of industry. Earth will change. Wars will go away. Energy scarcity will go away. The idea of we got to have wires on the ground and we have to grow our population along these wires with meters, all that goes away. All that becomes ancient technology like horseback. Energy becomes available to everybody. And this is what ends wars on the earth. We completely overwhelm the value system of Earth with the value system from the moon. And then we can go beyond that. But if we have a moon colony and somebody gets pregnant on the moon, it ain't no big deal. That person can be on the next shuttle back to Earth, have a normal baby on Earth, and then go back and do what they do. If we have a pregnancy on Mars, that's a Martian. That baby's never going to be born on the Earth. And when it's born on Mars, it is never coming to Earth. It will live on Mars forever.
And do you say that because they'd be incompatible with coming back?
Won't make it. 7 months, even 70 days, even the 70 days with fusion rocketry to get back to the Earth to have that baby normally, will never make it. It will already be through several of the critical development phases at low gravity. It will never survive on Earth. That's a Martian.
Wow. Do you think going the other direction, do you think that we'll ever one day have civilizations or any kind of tourism maybe under the water?
Yes, I think that's coming too. It's interesting. It's a great tourist idea. I think if we could start at 30 feet and then we can go to 100 feet, I think beyond that, you're not going to see much because it's too dark. But I've dove to, I think the deepest I've dove is 140 feet. It's still light. You could still see, but it's all washed out. There's no color. You have to turn lights on to see any color. Uh, it isn't that hard to do. Even I could probably dive to 200 feet. I'd have to have special tanks to get back to the surface because it's a lot more decompression involved. Once you get past 100 feet, the dive tables change radically. But I've already dove to 120 feet. No big deal. You don't even feel it.
I was gonna kind of ask something similar. So, personal question to you then, Brooks. Would you rather get a private trip to the moon in a spacecraft, or would you rather get a manned submarine trip to that vent at the bottom of ocean. Which would you pick?
Oh,
Oh,
the moon in a heartbeat. Yeah, I mean, I'm middle-aged, I put it that way. I've probably got another 60 years to live, maybe 70, and I'm in great shape. I'm in way better shape than John Glenn was when he made his second trip to space, or William Shatner. But I would absolutely definitely go to the moon. If I could get to the moon and direct that uh, volcanic vent construction project, it'd be the crowning achievement of my life.
I mean, yeah, that'd be one of the crowning achievements of human history, I would say.
It would change the world. It would end wars and change human civilization forever.
So long as the Nephilim bastards don't try to stop it.
Yeah, and I think they are trying to stop it, to
Sure.
tell you the truth. They don't want us to expand. They only have dominion on this planet.
why is that?
Rules, and I don't know how to put it any other way. They can only do so much. They can't directly engage because once they break the rules, then we can break the rules. We could bring divine beings in too, and our divine beings can kick their divine beings' ass. So they can only go so far. They can only influence us to destroy ourselves. And once we reveal that to people, like, this is what you're listening to, this is the music, this is the mantra, this is the lesson, we start informing people, then they can choose not to do that. And that's the issue. These kids that are being indoctrinated from very young ages and turned into these monsters that we see generationally take the place of the Rothschilds and the Clintons, and they're even more violent, more devastating next generation coming along. We've got to inform them what they're doing. Now, some of them are already lost. They've already sold their souls. They've already got their voice. They've already got their money. They can't be touched by the law. They're lost. But the next generation we can save. And then it's only a matter of time before they die out. Once they're dead and gone, then the next generation is golden.
Right.
So when someone sees like an angel or something happens and a Holy Spirit intervenes
Mhm.
and saves them, is that essentially the angel getting even with a Nephilim for breaking a rule previously, like them kind of making it even?
Yeah, I think so. They can't just move in and kill you. Well, I suppose they could, but then you just come back because we're eternal beings having a mortal experience. They don't win. They might win, temporarily, but they don't win because we just come back and they face us again and again and again for thousands of years. And each time we come back, we get better, we get smarter. We are not as easy to fool the next time. But there are things that we choose to do that end the game. And Jesus tried to explain this to us, and he wasn't too nice about it. He said, "It will be better for you if you hung a millstone around your neck and jumped into the ocean than what I'm going to do to you."
Yeah. And he was referring to harming children.
That's right.
Yep. And for him to get that violent and upset about something, that's how you know that's like the most extreme offense. I think most people would even agree, like even in jail and the hardest of criminals, like they don't play around with that. Like they'll kill you if you messed with kids as a crime. Like it's just in our nature to know, like, hey, you don't fucking do that. And
That's
then
right.
somehow we find ourselves ruled by people who get off on that.
Yes, they do. In
That's
fact,
tough.
they have to do it because it's part of the covenant that they make.
Right.
So they have to do it for the rest of their lives. They have to feed themselves off the death of infants. And when we cut their supply off, oh, they wither before our very eyes.
Oh yeah. And I feel like a lot of, well, obviously there's a lot of conspiracies related to the whole pandemic thing, and it was a whole like all-encompassing thing around the globe. But I feel like a lot of that was because maybe people were kind of getting on to the trail of the human trafficking and the Pizzagate stuff and all that, that it was kind of being brought to light a little bit, and they had to bring everything to a stop so they don't get
That was
hung
part
en
of it.
masse. Yeah.
I mean, part of it was that they lost the keys to the kingdom. I mean, they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. I thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. Everybody thought it. And when she didn't, it was like, holy shit, the keys are now in somebody else's hands. And the only way to defeat him was to smash the Trump economy. And the only way to do that was to use the flu as a ruse to shut the whole world down. It wasn't the flu. I mean, it was just an ordinary flu. It was bad, but it wasn't, wiping the whole earth out. Um, it was designed to give them an excuse to shut the planet down. That was their goal. That's what they had to do to win.
Yeah, I think they really overplayed their hand with everything they did recently. It just seems like a desperation tactic from them.
Yeah, but we'll do it again. I see people to this day. I just got back from a book signing tour in California. I saw people in California still wearing masks.
Oh
Pe-
man.
Holy shit. Running around shopping and stuff, riding a bicycle with a mask on. And that person's first in line. If we do it again, that person's first in line. And there are
For
others
sure.
that will just line up right beside them. They're ready to go again. They did not learn their lesson.
Las
Oh, man.
Vegas, everybody's wearing masks out there too. I was very surprised. Yeah,
Very surprised.
crazy.
Well, I'll be in California next week. I guess I'll see how many I see for myself.
All you really need is ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and you can protect yourself against anything they can throw at us.
And they did their best to demonize that, didn't they?
Yeah, but fortunately, there are people like me that make it available on our website. So if you want it, you can get
Amazing.
it.
That is very good to know. That is very good to know. You are a legend, Brooks. We are so grateful to have you back here. Where can everybody find that on your website and everything
Oh,
else you got going on?
if you go to brooksagnew.com, right on the front, there's a button that says Ivan and Roxy. That's my code words. Ivan and Roxy with no prescription. Click that button. You're one click away from having it in your medicine cabinet at cost. I don't make any money on it. My mission is to save lives.
Amazing. And what else is new from the last time we talked besides your, you know, hypothesis being proven correct, basically?
Well, I have for almost 30 years, was very close to 30 years, consulted with the Fortune 100 as a master engineer. So they get to a point where they don't know how to manufacture something, or they're going to launch a new product and they don't know how to get it launched. Then they call me. I retired from that full time in June of last year. So I have redirected my professional efforts toward my construction company. So we're now building houses in Hickory, North Carolina. I love building. Helps me keep my girlish figure. For one thing, I can look just like Tom. Uh, but it also helps the economy, and it helps my family, and it keeps me active. So that's what I'm doing. I'm building houses, and I'm also writing. So I'm finishing my 13th book, which is called Glance of Angels, and it is the sequel to Charm of Favor.
Awesome.
And everybody could find that on your website as well.
Oh yeah, just go to my store. You see all my books. And by the way, if you buy any book from me, or from Amazon, I will give you the audio version of it for free. So if you're not a great reader, don't worry about it. I read the book for you. And if you just want the audiobooks, you can listen to all of them pretty cheap. Like if you go to Audible, it's going to cost you like $21.95 for one of my audiobooks. But you can get the same book at the same quality from my website for $6. So make your choice.
And they're all narrated by you, correct?
I
Yes.
can't afford a professional, so yes,
I think you are a professional, sir. You got the voice for radio. You've been a host, you're a podcaster. No one better to do it than you.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm glad you read the books. That makes a big difference.
yeah, the passion is in the books for sure.
No one knows those words better than you. You wrote them,
Correct.
right?
And don't forget, we're doing live events around the country. Go to the website, look at the upcoming events. Come and meet me in person. I'm going to be in Vegas in October. Going to be in Spruce Pine in June in North Carolina. Going to be in Shasta in July. So come and see me personally. Let's meet.
We'd love to see you here in Chicago.
find a venue, invite me. I'll come. No,
Let's
no
go.
problem.
Let's go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, brother. It's been a pleasure like always. I wish you the best of luck. And yeah, and you got anything, Tom?
No, thanks for coming back, man. It's
My
definitely a
pleasure.
great
Anytime.
conversation.
All right. Thanks, Brooks. Take it easy. Have a good evening.
Bye bye.
Take
Bye.
care.